Hey, welcome to this first episode of the Soccer Fitness podcast. So the idea behind this podcast is just to give sort of bite-sized nuggets of information on different topics to do with football or soccer, strength and conditioning. I get a lot of questions coming in from both players and parents in relation to different things, and I just thought this would be a good way of just having all my responses essentially in one place. And I've called it the Soccer Fitness Podcast rather than the Football Fitness Podcast, just because we have a lot of players from the US and also Australia as well, and they use soccer and football. So just to be clear that we're talking about soccer here, sometimes if we have someone who's new to us in terms of our audience, they're not sure if we're talking about soccer or like American football. So the Soccer Fitness Podcast, in this first episode, we're going to talk about speed training and how to get faster without just going out and sprinting. So in terms of the format with this, I'm not going to go with anything too scripted. I'll just essentially start talking, and that will lead me into sort of talking about different things as I get into the topic. So the first thing I just want to cover is that going out and sprinting to becoming a faster footballer, it does work, but it's quite limited in its approach. So it'll work, but only to a point where it'll get you so far. So if, for example, let's think about an Olympic sprinter. Usain Bolt is a really easy example, hopefully everyone's probably heard of. So if all he did was went out and just practice his sprinting all the time, he would still be a great sprinter because naturally he's got that gift of having a body which is built for speed, and it would improve him to an extent. He could practice his movement mechanics when he's sprinting. He could also increase his capacity to produce force at speed and apply it into the ground. So he can work all these things, but it's only going to get him so far because you can't progressively overload that. You can in some ways, in that he could run by being attached to a sled, which he's pulling behind him, or pushing a sled as well. But then he can't just keep sprinting all the time because he's just going to become too fatigued. His nervous system's going to become maxed out in terms of the fatigue, and he's going to then hinder the improvements which are going to come from that training. To really benefit from speed training, your nervous system needs to be as fresh as possible, and then you're just providing a few reps or sets of working at maximum intensity, and then you're resting. So what you'll find is that with a lot of professional sprinters, for example, when they're sprinting, when they're out on the track doing their track training, they'll be sprinting and then they have like long rest periods in between, because you can't just keep repeating that sprinting. You need to let your nervous system recover so that you can go maximum intensity and effort with every single sprint, and ensure that your nervous system is fresh, so it's firing at full capacity as well. So when you train in that way, you're going to notice better improvements from sprint training. But you can't just do it all the time. So if you try to, not only would your results be limited, more sprinting is going to lead to better results, but also you could, because you're doing every rep with maximum intensity, quite a high risk of injury as well. So that's the reason why sprinting is quite limited. Obviously, with being a footballer, you're not just sprinting in a straight line. The key phase of a sprint is most of the time that first 5, 10, 15 meters, that acceleration phase. Get into an opponent, get into the ball first, making that goal line recovery, and then moving off in another direction. Also, with a footballer, if you're not just sprinting in a straight line, you need to be good at changing direction, good at reacting to things as well, and also you need to be good at decelerating, so coming to a stop or slowing down very quickly to then change direction and create some space for yourself. So it's not all just about sprinting in a straight line, which makes you an effective footballer in relation to your speed. So that's why, another reason why just going out and practicing sprints is limited. You can't do it all the time, you can't just do it repeatedly, and it lacks that progressive overload or a way to do that quite easily, to be able to train it multiple times throughout the week to make more progress. Okay, so that's just the first thing to cover there. In terms of an analogy, which is quite easy to understand with this, a good one I like to use is just comparing it to like a high performance car. So let's take a Ferrari, for example. So a Ferrari will go as fast as its components that it's made up of. Okay, so just by trying to put your foot further down on the accelerator, isn't going to make it be able to go faster than it's already built to go, if that makes sense. So that could be the same with any player's body. To make the Ferrari faster, you could get better tyres, so you can have better traction, better grip. You could streamline the body a little bit more, so it's more aerodynamic. That'll help it go faster as well. You could give it a bigger engine. So all these little changes you could make to try and increase the speed of that car, but simply trying to drive it faster every single time is going to be a limited approach. So in terms of, like, for a footballer, what that would mean is how could we make the sprint faster outside of just trying to go out and do sprints? We could think about increasing muscular size of the muscles which are involved in sprinting, and then they can produce more force. And then if we can increase our power as well through what we do in the gym, then we're going to be able to apply that force at greater speed into the ground, so we're going to become more explosive. So all of that's going to help us with our speed without actually going out and sprinting. We want to then, once we've done that training, go out and apply that in a sprint, by doing sprints and performing with maximum speed out on the pitch, just so we can then apply what we're doing in the gym and transfer it in that very specific way out into actually running and sprinting on the football pitch. But we've also got to think about muscle flexibility, mobility around joints as well, so optimizing those so that our stride length is optimized, also our injury resilience and the amount of tension that we can store and release as well, in particular around the bottom of the lower leg and around the back of the heel and the ankle there. That system called the stretch shortening cycle, where we're storing elastic energy and then releasing it quickly. That is very dependent on the mobility and the flexibility around that region, how much we can store in terms of how much those structures are able to stretch, to extend, but not too far. We don't want to overextend, because then that energy that was stored is going to start to dissipate before we've applied it. So we've got to take these things into consideration, and also the way that the foot then makes contact with the ground, the angle that is, the part of the foot, how punchy that movement is as well. So we want to be punching the foot into the ground to then rebound off into the next step. So we've got to think about those things as well. And also, if you think about our movement mechanics, we can optimize those. And you can do that out when you're practicing your sprinting. You work on your movement mechanics. What we can also do in the gym is thinking about our stability as well. So not only, the first thing to look at with that would be our single leg stability. So think about it, when you're sprinting, it's a single leg movement. So each foot is contacting the ground whilst the other foot is off the ground. So if we lack stability in the ankle or anywhere throughout that single leg, then when we make contact with the ground, that leg's probably just going to shift or maybe buckle a little bit, and we're going to lose some of that energy, some of that tension built throughout the leg, which is then going to be able to enable us to apply that force that we've got into the ground. Okay, so we need stability throughout each leg. If you've got one side which is more stable than the other, then every other stride is going to be slightly more limited in terms of its effectiveness when you take that step with every stride, if that makes sense. Also, we've got to think about our core strength and our core stability as well. So if everything else is great, but we're really weak throughout our core, that's where we generate our power from, and where force is transferred throughout the body. So from the lower body to the upper body down to the lower body. Our core is where our trunk is where that force is transferred. So if we're weak there, it's going to limit the amount of force that we can produce. Also, it's going to mean that we could lose some of our energy by side-to-side movements or losing balance as we're sprinting. So if you want to tighten up your core, more stable through the core, it's also going to enable you to resist rotation as well. So if someone's trying to knock you off your path, then you're going to be able to resist that and continue. So core strength is really important as well. Also, we've got to think about our upper body. So if we want nice, strong, powerful shoulders, 'cause if you think about it, our arms are really important when we're out sprinting. So the more powerful our arm drive can be, and the quicker our arms can move, our lower body is going to follow that as well. So that's another thing which you can improve on. And a lot of our players I have practicing just their arm sprints in the gym without actually doing any lower body work to help with their speed. So that's another thing we need to think about as well. So you can see how that is different from just going out and sprinting on the pitch. We can do all these other things throughout the week which are going to aid that further. We can optimize the stretch shortening cycle, and we'll do that through plyometrics to work on that stiffness, but also our mobility work as well, and to make sure we're optimizing that to store energy and then but not be overstretching. So we want to think about our injury resilience as well. Then we're thinking about stability throughout each leg, and also the amount of the amount of force that our muscles are able to produce through our strength training, being able to apply that explosively through our power training, then thinking about our stability through our core as well, also our movement mechanics, also our upper body as well, making sure we've got a nice powerful upper body with our shoulders as well. And I'm just talking about obviously sprinting in terms of this. All these things that we're doing will have benefits to many other aspects of a footballer's athleticism as well. But really, just going out and sprinting, you will get some good progress on that to start with, but it's really limited in what you can do in terms of the frequency of that training and also how much you can overload that as well. So if I want to train strength in the muscles which are involved in sprinting, like the glutes, hamstrings, calves, I can actually go in the gym and work on improving the strength, the amount of force that those muscles can produce over time, which will then aid my sprinting performance. Okay, so we've got to think about performance, but also injury resilience at the same time, being quick in lots of directions, so agile as well, so reacting to different things which might be happening on the pitch, and also very good at decelerating. So often the quickest players on the pitch are also the ones which are best at decelerating and changing direction as well. And again, a simple way to think about this is the analogy of a car. So how would you upgrade a sports car to become even faster? You can't just try and drive the same car faster. You have to upgrade the components of it, and that's what we're doing with our work in the gym. If that's an analogy, that hopefully makes sense to you and you understand. So that's just one of the reasons why it's so beneficial to be incorporating strength and conditioning into your training, because when we're out sprinting on the pitch just through normal team training sessions and matches, that will improve your speed if you're doing that with intention, but it's only going to take you so far, and also every player is doing that as well. We want to combine that with what we're doing in the gym, and then make sure that we then apply that in our sprint training out on the pitch, so that we get a good transfer, and that training becomes then really highly functional to you as a footballer, or your son or daughter if you're the parent listening. And that's the best approach, in my opinion, for a player to increase their speed out on the pitch. Okay, so I think I've covered everything that I wanted to cover there in terms of sprinting. One last thing, actually, this is why it comes to me, is we've got to think about as well triple extension. So triple extension is when the angle at the front of the ankle, the back of the knee and the front of the hip extend all at the same time. And we see that, let's say for example, we're doing a squat jump where we squat down and then we jump up. We're extending at the front of the ankles, the back of the knees and the front of the hips to be as explosive as we can in that vertical direction. Exactly the same movement happens when we're sprinting. Okay, so with every step, when we push off, we've got that triple extension at the front of the ankle, back of the knee and at the front of the hip there as well. So we can train that movement in the gym really easily, and we can overload that movement as well, and that's going to have a direct carryover again to speed performance on the pitch. And all these things, they require time. We need to train the nervous system, have the adaptations from the nervous system, but also we want to sort of be increasing actual qualities of our muscle as well, in terms of increasing the muscle fiber size so we can produce more force, and also increase the activation levels of the fibers within our muscles as well. So a lot of players, they actually might be underutilizing the muscle fibers that they've got just through a lack of muscle activation in certain muscles. So again, through strength training, we can then, if we can engage those muscle fibers, we can then produce more force very quickly before we've actually, further down the line with the strength training, if that makes sense. So yeah, just wanted to cover that last point about the triple extension there and why that is important. Also with the injury resilience side, you need to think about, to be a fast footballer, changing direction at speed and at quite high, sharp angles as well. So we need the injury resilience and the mobility and flexibility to be able to cope with that. So if you're out practicing your speed on the pitch, it needs to be multi-directional as well. Okay, so that's everything I think now that I wanted to cover in terms of that. If you've got any questions around this at all, please comment with them below. If you'd like to learn more about this, I have a book. It's here. There's a hardback available and also a paperback as well. There's a digital copy available as well. I'll add the link to it below this video, and you can get the physical copy on Amazon. It's called the Football Fitness Bible. This is the 2nd edition. So if you haven't got that yet and you're interested in this type of stuff, then definitely recommend grabbing a copy so you can just take a deeper dive in understanding how this all works and how everything comes together. And obviously we also have, if you haven't heard of it before, the Elite Football Athlete Program, which is an online based strength conditioning program for youth footballers. It takes players from complete beginner or players who already have some experience in the gym all the way through a proven process to help them become an elite football athlete, a player who's capable of playing at pro academy level or even international level as well, and physically being able to keep up. Many of our players who have enrolled with us before enrolling were struggling because they were maybe on the smaller size competing against bigger players. We really help players with that, but also players who don't have that struggle, but they just want to have an edge and become the best athlete they can be on the pitch so they can have more impact with their technical ability. We help with that as well. So add a link below this video to that as well. Hope you enjoyed this episode. If you've got any questions at all, please post them below, and I will catch you in the next one.